Well, I think in terms of buying, ordinary consumers, we know from studies in Eastern Europe, in Africa, in parts of Asia, hospitals are buying them. There are real concerns that fake meds are getting into standard sort of distribution channels, so may well turn up in parts of the US. In terms of, and obviously, sort of individual consumers are buying them. People want to be at the front of the queue for, say, vaccinations. In terms of who's selling them, uh, a range of actors. What we're seeing here is not particularly new. We've been seeing this sort of offence in China over many years. It's apparent in Africa. It's apparent in places like Pakistan and India.
And
So business as usual.
how do these vaccines make their way into global supply chains?
Well, we have something that either is more or less a genuine product, often sort of often a weaker version, uh, or it's something that's sort of completely bogus. And what we see exploiting that is fake trademarks, fake packaging, fake instructions. People misbehave with the logistics end, so manifests, boxes, authorization, that sort of thing.
Which communities in particular might be vulnerable to perhaps become inoculated with a fake vaccine?
Well, I don't think we've got major problems likely in Australia. We're certainly seeing major problems in South America, huge problems in Africa, where traditionally we have supply problems, we have corruption right across the sector. We have very weak regulation in terms of health authorities, in terms of customs authorities, uh, right throughout the supply chain, distribution chain, if you like. There are major problems, and this is particularly critical for many of these people, many of the disadvantaged communities, because they're in poor health already. So if they go down, they're really going to go down.
You would think that China, which is producing vaccines of its own, would be working pretty hard to prevent this sort of thing tarnishing its reputation.
Well, with, say, a lot of health product production in China, it's often quite theatrical. So Beijing's supervision of what happens in the provinces isn't necessarily effective. And we're seeing, I suspect, what we've seen in the past and what we've seen recently with the item that you pointed to. It's rather theatrical. Every so often they sort of round up a couple of offenders. People get shot. We have a deputy minister or a vice minister being shot, and then once the cops go away, once the cameras are turned off, it's largely business as usual. There's a systemic problem with corruption, certainly major problems with quality control, and regrettably we see that in India as well.
How do authorities put a stop to it?
We basically need better training. We need anti-corruption measures. We need much greater surveillance. And so, if you look at, say, what's been happening in India in the last couple of years, the major regulators have said, "Look, we're grossly underfunded." It's similar to what we have in Australia, regrettably. We're grossly underfunded. We don't have the expertise. We don't have the authority. We need to be able to go into factories regularly, do spot checks. We need much greater penalties to deter misbehaviour. We need courts to fast track this sort of thing. We need much greater support from the police. So a range of measures.
Now, just very quickly, I've got two vaccine-related questions for you. The first one, South Korea is reporting that North Korea has stolen vaccine data from Pfizer. What do you make of this?
I think that's largely business as usual. No, there are strong indications that a range of state actors or proxies for state actors, so the suggestions that say the Russian government's sort of trying to walk its way through various US, Canadian, Japanese, EU databases. It's a fairly standard sort of claim coming from South Korea. I'm not particularly surprised. Basically, if you can get away with it, you will. It's an easy way to save you having to spend billions of dollars doing your own research. And North Korea, really not a great place for doing research.
Well, meanwhile, Taiwan says its deal to buy 5 million doses of COVID-19 vaccine developed by Germany's BioNTech has been scuppered, potentially by Beijing.
Yes, I think that's very, very, very plausible. It's the dark side of what some people are calling vaccine diplomacy or vaccine nationalism. It's one way for the PRC, for Beijing, to send a strong message, not only to Taiwan, but to smaller countries in the region. And it's, I think, again, regrettably, fairly standard. What's worrying is that we should be taking a stronger line on investment by Chinese, basically government agencies, their investment into overseas corporations such as biotech. So this is very much big power politics.
Dr. Bruce Baer Arnold, thank you so much.
Pleasure.